Greetings to everyone. I never expected that I would turn to strangers on the internet for advice. But here I am. My wife and I shared a life journey for 10 years, with 8 of those years spent in marriage. We met in college and were each other's first and only partners. I believed our relationship was unique and wonderful due to our shared history, but it appears I was the only one who saw it that way. Some time ago, my wife started working at a new company. Initially, she struggled to find her place because of her reserved nature, but with my support, she made friends with a group of women, some of whom were divorced or dating without marriage. I was initially happy she had new friends, but I grew concerned as she started attending drinks, parties, and events her friends organized. I wanted to talk to her about this change, but I didn't want to be controlling. Unfortunately, this change affected our life in the bedroom. My wife, who rarely initiated fun, was either too tired or not in the mood due to her constant outings. Eventually, a new manager appeared at her company, and my wife and her friends seemed to welcome him wholeheartedly. She began mentioning him casually, even discussing non-work-related issues he was involved in. I worried about her infatuation and expressed my concerns, but she brushed them aside. To my surprise, she brought up the idea of an open marriage to spice up our relationship. This shocked me because she had never shown such interest before and was not particularly open. Initially, I declined and asked if it was related to the new manager. She denied any connection but admitted she felt like she'd missed certain experiences. She assured me she didn't want to lose me, which is why she saw an open marriage as a safer option. I cautioned her about the risks, but naively, I agreed to the idea. And we set some ground rules, with the main one being no communication involvement with others in our home. Over the course of a year, my wife went on dates, had one-night stands, and eventually got involved with the manager. In contrast, my own experiences were limited to a few dates without any one-night stands. At some point, I felt the love I once had for her, the pure and innocent bonds of marriage, had faded, and it was tearing me apart inside. I found solace in the company of an amazing woman from South Korea who had recently moved here. We went on unforgettable dates, had easy conversations, and shared and communicate relationship. The passion between us was like nothing I'd ever experienced. Initially, my wife found it amusing, but she started doubting the depth of my relationship with my new partner. In response, I reminded her that this arrangement was her idea and expressed my concerns about her relationship with the manager. She remained silent and kept her thoughts to herself. Her behavior drastically changed. She began coming home early to cook dinner and clean the house meticulously. She even visited my office to bring lunch and initiated communication in the bedroom. Normally, these gestures would have made me happy, but in the context of our open marriage, it was hard for me to reciprocate. When we did communicate, it was just to get it over with. Something had changed in me regarding my wife, and I felt she sensed it too. I mustered the courage to ask her what led to her change in behavior, desperately seeking an explanation. She replied that she wanted to show me her love and happiness in our relationship. I couldn't help but laugh at the irony. I proceeded to tell her about her circle of friends, the manager she talked about, and her one-night stands. She went to bed in tears that evening, without giving any response. The next day, she confessed that she wanted to end the open marriage, admitting it was a terrible mistake and expressing deep regret for everything that happened. She implored us to focus on our relationship with each other. I asked her to be completely honest and reveal the true motivation behind it all. To my surprise, she admitted that her friends had suggested the idea to her, sharing stories of their communicate adventures that piqued her curiosity. When her manager came into the picture, he encouraged this open lifestyle, pushing her further down that path. What began as an emotional connection eventually led to a physical romance. She described the experience of the open marriage as feeling like she was driving a high-speed car while intoxicated, a dangerous and reckless situation. Initially, she found this new lifestyle exciting, but now the consequences had become overwhelming. She realized she didn't need comparisons. What we had together was truly unique and special. Regret overwhelmed her as she realized the gravity of what had ruined our marriage and extinguished hope for a future together. I admitted that I might not be able to see her as my wife anymore, which devastated her. She fell in front of me in silence, and I held her as she cried, seeking comfort in our shared silence. Eventually, exhaustion got the best of her, and she fell asleep in my arms on the couch. In an attempt to make things right, She took a courageous step. She resigned from her job and cut ties with her friends and manager. She genuinely wanted to spend the rest of her life making amends with me and working hard to rebuild my trust, becoming a true wife. However, I haven't ended my relationship with my mistress. To be honest, my mistress makes me feel like a man, giving me a sense of confidence and strength that I haven't felt in my marriage for a long time. To make things even more complicated, we have our first marriage counseling session scheduled in just a couple of hours. I'm not sure how everything will turn out, but I'm hopeful for a positive outcome. The therapist seemed pleasant and experienced, which gave me some hope at first. They appeared unbiased and genuinely willing to help us address our issues. Despite it being our first session, my wife wasted no time in laying it all out on the table. She bravely admitted that her friends had influenced her, making her wonder if she'd missed out on certain experiences. It's worth noting that although some of her friends were divorced, none of them were married. The therapist astutely pointed out that such thinking can be detrimental to a marriage. The disparity in experience and the desire for what might have been can create significant tension in a relationship. My wife agreed, admitting that after the new manager started showing interest in her, some of her friends suggested she explore this possibility, viewing it as a way for her to discover herself. Despite feeling guilty, she revealed that she never engaged in physical communication until one of her divorced friends proposed an open marriage as a sort of loophole. This friend convinced her that some couples actually grow stronger after such an experience. Unfortunately, my wife admitted that she convinced me to agree to an open marriage, something she now deeply regrets. She described her so-called adventure as exhilarating but empty, lacking true meaning. Doubts started creeping into her mind, causing her to question her reasons for embarking on this path. She saw the pain in my eyes, and it deeply affected her. Initially, she thought that I would eventually come to terms with her situation, given that I was also dating. But everything changed when my mistress became a constant presence in my life. I began to smile again and seemed happier. My mistress's messages or phone calls lit up my day. These subtle changes in my behavior made her realize how it was affecting our relationship. She confessed to experiencing anxiety and panic attacks for no apparent reason. Seeking advice, she turned to her friends, but they dismissed her concerns, deeming my reaction a normal part of our adventure. However, one friend eventually pointed out that my mistress seemed to make me genuinely happy. The harsh truth hit her. It wasn't her who brought me joy, but another woman. Realizing the gravity of the situation, she turned to her friends in desperation, asking for help in winning me back. Shockingly, they callously questioned why she had initiated an open marriage if she couldn't handle the consequences. It was then that she realized how toxic and destructive these people were to our marriage and the life we had built together. In response, she began working tirelessly to regain my love and trust, willing to do whatever it takes. For my part, I didn't say much during the counseling session, but I mentioned that my mistress was still in the picture. The therapist pointed out that as long as my mistress remained involved, there could be no solution to our problem. They recommended another counseling session in 2 days to further assess our complex situation. The therapist acknowledged the unique nature of our relationship as each other's first partners, and it seemed like they were determined to help us navigate this challenging period and find happiness. It seemed like the therapist genuinely believed that with the right guidance and effort, any storm could be weathered. Despite my detailed report, I wanted to provide a comprehensive account of our current situation, considering all that had happened. I decided to move into my brother's apartment. Although he offered it for free, I insisted on paying a minimal rent to maintain a sense of independence. As I dug deeper into uncovering the truth about my wife's behavior and her manager, disturbing revelations came to light. During the second counseling session, I asked some probing questions. I inquired if there had been any physical involvement before we opened our marriage. In response, she turned away, gazing at the floor, and begged me not to force her to say it out loud. Reluctantly, she confessed that while it wasn't physical communication in the traditional sense, they had engaged in pleasuring each other in each other's presence. This manipulator had convinced her that it wasn't real cheating because it wasn't traditional physical communication. He distorted the situation, claiming they were appreciating each other's beauty in its entirety. Her confession hit me like a ton of bricks, leaving me speechless and utterly shocked. She began trembling uncontrollably, struggling to catch her breath amidst a flood of emotions. Tears streamed down her face and she apologized for her actions. Even the therapist, taken aback by the revelation, feigned disbelief. My wife dropped to her knees, clinging tightly to my legs, expressing deep remorse. In that moment, she truly regretted the pain she had caused. Out of curiosity, I probed further to understand what had caused her change of heart regarding the manager. She recounted a specific incident when she distanced herself from the group. It was during this time that she noticed a shift in his behavior toward her. One evening, while leaving a meeting, she overheard him talking about her with another male colleague. To her horror, he expressed surprise at how easily he could manipulate her, emphasizing that even the quiet ones couldn't be trusted. When asked if he had genuine feelings for her, he callously remarked that she was a pleasant but insignificant distraction. This revelation shattered her perception of him. To make matters worse, the manager revealed that he had no intention of ending his engagement with his fiancée. He heartlessly stated that his relationship with my wife was merely a way to fulfill temporary desires, emphasizing that he shared a real connection and understanding only with his bride. He expressed some sympathy for me but coldly shrugged off the situation as a mistake. The realization that she meant nothing more to this man than a conquest was a devastating blow to my wife. She was overwhelmed by guilt for betraying me for a fleeting pleasure. She left her workplace in despair and found solace in the parking lot, where she physically displayed the emotional shock by vomiting. With tears in her eyes, she admitted that, at first, she was consumed by remorse. She doubted her actions and asked for my forgiveness repeatedly. She expressed deep regret for the pain she had caused. Out of curiosity, I wondered if she had developed feelings for the manager and if her love for me had waned. Through tear-filled eyes, she met my gaze and firmly declared that she had never stopped loving me. Strangely, this revelation only intensified the pain because it showed that, despite her love for me, she was drawn to something else. She now understood how foolish it was to mistake it for love. In that moment, she squeezed my hand tightly, emphasizing her sincere regret and the depth of her emotions. She admitted her mistakes and fondly remembered the connection we had before everything went awry. In an attempt to reconcile, she suggested moving and starting a new life together as initially planned. However, I was torn. Recognizing that continuing my relationship with my mistress would be unfair, I explained that I needed time to sort out our complex situation with my wife separately. Hearing this, she experienced a severe emotional breakdown, sobbing uncontrollably and clinging to me, as if fearing my disappearance. It took the consultant and me some time to calm her down and restore stability to the conversation. As I began packing my things to create some distance and clarity, a video call interrupted our plans on my wife's laptop. It was one of her former friends, visibly upset and in tears. Shockingly, it turned out that after my wife left her job, this friend had an affair with the manager. Additionally, she became pregnant, which led to a dramatic change in the manager's behavior. This revelation demonstrated the extent of his character change, and it was even more disappointing that this friend already had a boyfriend with potential for a future together. Curiosity seemed to be a recurring theme, and she confessed that her affair was driven by a desire for new experiences. It was a depressing insight mirroring the patterns we encountered throughout this tumultuous journey. It was revealed that her friend's boyfriend discovered email correspondence between her and the manager discussing a possible pregnancy, leaving him shocked. Instead of taking responsibility, the manager accused her of trying to trap him with a child. Consequently, her boyfriend ended their relationship. Seeking comfort and advice, she turned to my wife, believing that she had saved our marriage. However, I could no longer accept this situation and left, finding refuge in the apartment where I've been residing since. Significant events soon unfolded. It turned out that the ex-girlfriend who experienced the fear of pregnancy was indeed pregnant. Unfortunately, the stress from the loss of her boyfriend and the humiliation due to infidelity causing a strong emotional reaction. She exposed the manager to the top management and his fiancé. Out of curiosity, I came across the manager's fiancée on Facebook and was surprised to see her portrayed as an ideal girl from a small town. Her profile depicted her as a teacher for children with special needs who valued family and home. Unexpectedly, the ex-girlfriend who had experienced the fear of pregnancy contacted me. She intended to gather evidence against the manager and wanted to hear my version of events in person. We both took COVID tests for safety. Seeing her pain and exhaustion, I realized she was deeply wounded. Obvious signs of fatigue, dark circles under her eyes, and redness indicated her struggle with sleepless nights and inner turmoil. Despite her weariness, she expressed gratitude for meeting and offered heartfelt apologies for her role in my wife's ill-fated adventure. She explained that she had reconnected with my wife, learned about my decision to move out, and decided to take responsibility for her actions. She insisted on a face-to-face meeting, appreciating her willingness to take such steps. I couldn't help but wonder why she was so determined. She explained that the loss of her child and the love of her life had brought profound changes to her soul. This transformative experience gave her a new sense of purpose. She felt disgust and self-pity, unable to sleep, haunted by her ex's face. Meeting me was, in a way, a form of self-punishment for her actions. She shared that communicating with colleagues was a clear breach of conduct rules, compounded by his influential position in the company. There was a high likelihood that he could be fired and potentially blacklisted from the industry. She had come to terms with the potential consequences for herself. After listening to my perspective, she thanked me for sharing my story and apologized with a heavy heart. She left, burdened by remorse, as she tried to gather her belongings from our former home. I picked a time when I assumed my wife wouldn't be present, but to my surprise, she was there, surrounded by our wedding photos and deep in thought. When she noticed me, tears streamed down her face. She tried to hug me, but I gently pushed her away, focusing on retrieving my belongings. However, she insisted on showing me something important on her phone. She revealed a message from her former supervisor filled with anger and rudeness, which she had received 2 days earlier. Evidently, he had used a new number to contact her since she had blocked his previous one. My wife explained that she had a part in helping her ex-girlfriend expose the manager to relevant parties. She believed that revealing the secret would weaken him and give our relationship a chance to recover. While I expressed gratitude for her courage, I conveyed that it wouldn't change our relationship. I also mentioned my decision to discontinue marriage counseling. She sobbed softly and expressed her understanding. Although one might expect me to feel satisfaction or anger after the prolonged turmoil, I, instead, felt numb towards her. Recognizing that this emotional reaction was abnormal, I decided to address it through individual counseling, focusing on my well-being and interests. Following my brother's advice, I consulted with a divorce lawyer. At this point, I was no longer prepared to fight for the survival of our marriage, and it seemed that my wife sensed this shift in my stance. Before I departed, she made an attempt to initiate physical closeness. When I declined her advances, she erupted in anger, raised her voice, and questioned what my mistress could offer that she couldn't. She declared loudly enough for the neighbors to hear that she was willing to fulfill any desire or need I had as a wife. I sadly shook my head, realizing that even after all that had transpired, she couldn't grasp the true consequences of her choices. With a heavy heart, I calmly explained that if she still couldn't comprehend the repercussions of her actions, it was evident that our marriage was in decline. I left, burdened by the weight of the situation, and it was becoming increasingly clear that my wife was starting to grasp the harsh reality and outcomes of her decisions. Regrettably, the unfortunate truth is that we can't turn back time and rectify our mistakes. Perhaps she can dedicate some effort to self-reflection and personal growth in a quest to become a better partner. However, it's unlikely that this transformation will occur within the context of our relationship because the damage is already beyond repair. What's certain is that she will forever carry the memory of me and feel deep regret for her actions. This sense of remorse surpasses what many of us experience when someone breaks our trust. Expressing my pain has played a crucial role in helping me maintain clarity and perspective throughout this heart-wrenching process. Infidelity inflicts a devastating blow that leaves lasting scars. I genuinely believe that I will emerge from this experience as a better and stronger person than I was before.
I experienced a moment of anger before resuming the call and inquiring with Amy, my sister-in-law, about her invitation to that man to meet us at the hospice. Amy confirmed that she had indeed invited him, though she had initially tried to dissuade Elaine. She wasn't sure about Elaine's reasons for wanting him there. I expressed surprise that Susie might also be present, but Amy clarified that Elaine had mentioned the 3-year-old was too young to hear their discussion. I decided to drop Susie off at her parents' place before heading to the hospice, and Amy and I made our way to the hospice together. Upon our arrival, Amy and I received a warm welcome from the nurse, Cindy, who informed us that Elaine was having a good day and had used the morphine pump less frequently. We then proceeded to Elaine's room, and Amy assured me that everything would be okay. The room had a peaceful atmosphere with a garden view, but my discomfort increased when I noticed Trevor sitting by the headboard. I greeted Elaine by shaking her hand instead of with a kiss, and sat down with Amy on the opposite side of the bed from Trevor. Elaine began by expressing her gratitude for our presence, acknowledging the awkwardness of the situation, but emphasizing that they all wanted what was best for our daughter, Susie. I reiterated that Susie was my top priority, directing my gaze at Trevor and questioning his presence. Elaine, however, delayed her explanation, initially thanking both Amy and me for our support and describing Amy as an exceptional big sister. She also revealed her struggle with infertility and her gratitude for Amy's support through the infertility testing and in vitro fertilization process. Elaine praised Amy as her hero and a wonderful aunt to Susie. She expressed her confidence that Amy would continue to love and care for Susie and help me raise her. Then, Elaine broached the more complicated matter, acknowledging the pain her relationship with Trevor had caused me. I expressed my irritation and questioned her reasons for cheating on me with him. Elaine attributed her actions to the desperation she felt during their struggles with conception, despite Amy's assurance that my participation count was fine. I didn't quite believe her, and I glanced at Amy, who simply shrugged. Elaine explained that she had been desperate and ready to try anything. Trevor worked in the office next door, and one day during lunch, he saw her crying. She looked at Trevor with a smile and continued that Trevor had been kind and comforting, holding her hand while she cried, and over the next few months, they became close friends. I snorted and rolled my eyes, expressing my disbelief. I commented that I understood she might have been desperate and willing to try anything. Elaine added that Trevor had volunteered to assist, to which I responded with a disdainful look and suggested that he should have stayed clear. Elaine then detailed her reasons for her actions, explaining that, initially, her motive was to improve her chances of getting pregnant. However, over time, she and Trevor had fallen in love. She described it as an incredible experience and expressed her desire to find a way to keep both me and Trevor in her life. I questioned why she would think I'd ever agree to such a situation, and Elaine admitted she had been afraid I would divorce her when I found out about her affair. Instead, she described how I had become her hero for supporting her throughout the entire IVF process. She acknowledged that, despite having considered divorce, I had prioritized our child and decided to stay. She believed this demonstrated that I still loved her enough to ask one last favor. She then asked that I allow Trevor to be part of Susie's life and grant him joint custody after she was gone. I looked at Trevor, who appeared concerned and unlike his usual self. I was taken aback by Elaine's request and exchanged surprised glances with Amy. Finally, I firmly refused, stating there was no way I would agree to giving Trevor joint custody. Elaine, after looking at me in amazement and shedding some tears, composed herself and conceded that she had hoped for a more understanding response, but had no choice, so she insisted I had to give Trevor joint custody. Elaine revealed that Susie was not my biological child. In response to my questioning, she explained that she had wanted a child with each of us, and she had convinced Amy to use Trevor's analysis for IVF. She had planned to use my analysis for a second IVF in the future. However, due to her cancer diagnosis, that plan was no longer possible. Turning to Amy, I raised my eyebrows, and she confirmed that she had used Trevor's IVF sample at Elaine's request. She expressed confidence that a DNA test would confirm her parental rights to Susie. Trevor was smirking, but Amy quickly clarified that a DNA test wouldn't help him at all. She explained that Elaine had tried to persuade her to use Trevor's IVF sample, but she had refused and discarded it as medical waste. My genetic material was the only one used in our IVF. Elaine became upset and yelled at Amy, asking why she had done this. Amy defended her decision, emphasizing that what Elaine had asked her to do was not only selfish, but morally wrong. She revealed that Elaine's comment about being a genetic dead end was untrue. Elaine realized her mistake and asked for forgiveness. Amy explained that the eggs that combined with my analysis were hers, making her Susie's biological mother. She also mentioned that after Elaine was gone, we would get married, and she would legally adopt her own daughter. I responded firmly to Elaine making it clear that I had no intention of willingly sharing her or my daughter with Trevor. I questioned Elaine about why she hadn't pursued a divorce and had gone through IVF with me. I expressed my anger, telling her that when Amy revealed her request to switch my materials with Trevor's, I had been close to kicking her out of the house. I also mentioned that Amy and I had fantasized about taking revenge on both Elaine and Trevor, but had ultimately decided on a more suitable response to their betrayal. We had considered the possibility of using Elaine as a surrogate mother, but various factors, including cancer, had made that plan unfeasible. Elaine asked about her eggs, and Amy informed her that they were stored in the clinic's freezer, anonymously labeled. Amy explained that they might be used by one of her patients in need of an egg donor in the future, but Trevor wouldn't have any involvement with the baby. Despite the circumstances, Amy and I expressed our love for Elaine and offered her a chance to make amends before her passing. We emphasized the importance of making her remaining days special for Susie, who would face a challenging time after her mother's pass away. We mentioned the story we would tell Susie about her birth, giving Elaine a choice between being portrayed as the deceitful woman who betrayed me or as the brave sister who helped us fulfill our dream of having a child. We asked Elaine if she wanted to be a hero for Susie, at least for once.